Hey darlings, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you guys are staying safe. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make this simple abaya, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. Make sure you stay till the end, and if you enjoy it, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. So for this project, I'm going to be making use of 3.5 yards of cotton fabric that comes in 60 inches length. And I'm going to be describing how to cut this on paper, because if I do it with the fabric, it's too cumbersome and you may end up getting confused. So I'm going to be describing how to cut the whole thing on paper first. Now we're going to start off with cutting out the width of the fabric for the front piece. And you know, since both sides of the design are not the same, we are not going to be cutting on fold. Now I'm going to take a step by step on how to cut out the width for the front piece first. Now to do that, you're going to divide your hip circumference into 4, then add not less than extra 4 to 5 inches to it, which means you can add more depending on how much fabric you have available. Then you add 2 inches extra for seam allowance. Once you have done the mathematics, then we'll mark it out first, then we'll go over to the next level. So assuming your hip circumference is 40 inches, you are going to divide it into 4, which is 10 inches. You add extra 5 inches to it, which is 15 inches, plus 2 inches for seam allowance. Then you mark it out and rule it out like this. Note that I'm marking at the wrong side of my fabric, and I want the sleeve part to be at the left hand side of my fabric. So this is the left hand side of my dress. And I'm going to take whatever I measure here, remove the seam allowance, and measure it at the other side of my fabric, starting from the last line I made. I'm going to be removing the 2 inches seam allowance, or whatever seam allowance you added before to mark the other side of your front piece. You're going to remove the seam allowance from the calculation and then mark side by side with the other side you marked previously. Then you're going to roll it out like this. You're not going to be needing the seam allowance at the side of the dress. Now, as you can see, this line here represents the center front of your dress. And from this center front line, you're going to be measuring out half of your shoulder measurement, which in my case is 16 divided by 2, 8 inches. So you're going to place your tape on the center front line like this, and then you're going to measure out half of your shoulder measurement, which in my case is 8 inches. Then from that shoulder line you mark there, you're going to be taking a full measurement of your long sleeve, or wherever you want the sleeve of your butterfly part of your dress to reach. So in my own case, I marked out 20 inches. So in that 20 inches, you are going to be adding extra 2 inches to it for hemming. So right there, I'm going to mark it down. I'm going to measure whatever I have up there from the center front to the line I marked right now. I'm going to measure the same beneath the dress, and I'm going to mark it and then connect it to each other. So if you have enjoyed this tutorial so far, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and if you're yet to subscribe, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you. So as you can see right now, we've gotten the measurement we need for the front piece of our dress, and we cut the extra off. Now with this, now you are going to place it on another fabric, on the same fabric, and cut out exactly the same measurement for the back piece and set it aside. Now for the front piece, we are going to start off with folding in the center front of the dress. As you can see now, you fold in from the center front to mark out the neck measurement. Now to measure out the neck measurement, the width of the neck I used was 4 inches width. You can change the measurement depending on your desire. Now the depth of the neckline I used was 3.5 inches. So you can always modify this neckline to suit your desire. So once you have achieved the desired neckline, of which next time I'm making this dress, I'm going to be making it a turtleneck dress. But this time around, I'm sticking with this right now. So the next thing is to hold on to the shoulder area on both fabric, and you're going to give it a notch. And then you're going to cut out the neckline of your dress. Now when you open it up, this is what you have. The essence of notching it at this side that will have sleeve is not to mark in the shoulder measurement again. Next, I placed my tape on the shoulder line of the dress and I'm measuring out the bust line measurement, which I'm leaving at 9 inches for this particular dress since it's a free size dress. Ordinarily, I mark at 8.5 inches, but here I'm going to leave it at 9 inches. So I'm going to make a line from that shoulder measurement line up to the bust line. Now, placing my tape on the shoulder line, I'm finding the waistline, which I'm leaving at 17 inches, which is a kind of a standard. Then from the waistline down, you're going to measure about 8 to 9 inches to find your hip line measurement. Then you're going to give it a line. Then at the midpoint of the bust line area, you're going to find the depth. You're going to measure in 1/2 inch from that line in. And then the next thing you're going to do is to divide your bust measurement into 4, then add 1/2 inch extra for ease, and then you mark there. So next, we're going to be connecting from this bust measurement all the way to the 1/2 inch in we made at the midpoint of the armhole line up to the shoulder measurement. Now from here, we're going to be measuring 1/4 of the waistline measurement. That is your waistline circumference divided into 4. You're going to place your tape at the center front of your dress and then add 1/2 inch to that measurement so that you'll be able to enter your dress since it wouldn't have a zip at the end of the day. So at the hip line measurement, you are going to divide your hip circumference into 4, add extra 1/2 inch to that, place your tape at the center front of your dress and mark. Then at the bottom part of your dress, you are going to add 4 to 5 inches extra to whatever you marked at the hip line measurement. Mark and connect the side seams together. So next, you add your seam allowances, that is the side seam allowance. Now to discuss the shoulder slope, for this side that will have the sleeve, I'm not going to cut off anything. Rather, I'm going to leave it when I'm about to sew it. What I'm going to do is to measure 1/2 inch from the neckline area down. I'm going to mark. Then at this point, I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect both together like this, and this will serve as my shoulder slope. So I'm just going to mark this in like this to remind you that there should be a shoulder slope right here. So now at the other side, which is the butterfly side of the dress, I'm going to leave it a full doorman sleeve, which means I'm not going to be adding any slant to it. Rather, I'm going to sew it 1/2 inch from the neckline down to where the sleeve ends because I want it to be a full doorman sleeve. So if you want it to have a slope, I'm going to show you how to modify this also. Now, if you must create a shoulder slope at this point, it depends on how low you want it to be. You can mark 1/2 inch at this neckline down from the shoulder line. And then at the end of the sleeve, you can choose to measure 3 inches from the shoulder line down and connect it to each other. Some people may go as far as measuring 4 to 5 inches down. It depends on the look you're trying to achieve. But for me, I'm not going to be marking any slope apart from the 1/2 inch I mentioned earlier on. So you're just going to sew in like this. There's no need to cut off. Just mark and sew. Later on, you can trim off the excesses. So now that we have finished with the shoulder slope of the doorman side of the dress, the next thing we are going to talk about is the down part of this side of the dress. So now, as for me, this is how my dress looks. But if you want to modify the shape of the down part of your dress, you can choose to measure 2 to 3 inches above the side seam, and then you mark and then create a curve from that area to the center front of your dress. So we're going to repeat the same process at the other side of the dress, which is marking 2 to 3 inches up from the floor of the dress. You mark and then you connect with a curved line all the way to the center front of your dress. Now, as you curve this, you may choose to extend it to the butterfly sleeve of your dress. And this extension will help your dress not to be sweeping the floor while you walk. It will create a shape at that side of your dress but it's optional, of which I told you I didn't make any cuts at this part of my dress. So now you're going to cut off the front piece of your dress, and we're going to go over to cutting the back piece. Now to cut the back side of the dress, you're going to be placing the front piece right side to each other to your fabric for the back piece, and we're going to modify the armhole line, which is to mark the midpoint right there. Now we're going to be marking out 1/2 inch outward in reverse to what we did to the front piece, which is marking inward. This time around we're marking outward because the back is broader than the front side. So to create that balance, that is why we needed that modification done. Then the next thing you are going to do is to simply trace the side seams of the dress. Then the next thing you're going to do is to mark out the center front at the back side of your dress. Fold it in just as we have done for the front piece. Then we are going to be marking out the neckline. The width is exactly as you've marked for the front piece, which I showed you that I marked 4 inches width, but the depth is going to be about 2 inches for the back of mine. You can choose to make yours lower or higher. So now that we've marked this, the next thing I'm going to do right now is to cut out the neckline for my back piece. So guys, if you are yet to subscribe, please click the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our interesting tutorials. Thank you. So right here we have both the front and the back piece together. So now we're going to be tracing the side seam and armhole line, then we cut it out, and then we'll go over to the next level. So now we're going to implement this on your fabric, and I'm going to show you how to put this together with your sewing machine in a few minutes, and your dress will be as good as done. Let's go over to sewing. Now the first thing I did was to use my bias to finish off the neckline of both the front and the back piece. Now after doing that, as you can see, I've finished off the necklines. I'm going to place it right side to each other, and as I mentioned earlier on while we were cutting out the pattern, I'm going to measure down 1/2 inch from the neckline area right here, and then at the other side I'm going to measure down 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to sew both together to create the slant for my shoulder line. Then at this part of the doorman sleeve, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew down with the same 1/2 inch all the way to the end. Now after joining your dress from the shoulder line, you're going to sew the side seam of the part that will have sleeve from the wrong side of your fabric. Then after doing that, this is the right side of my fabric. As you can see, I have one closed-ended side, and the open-ended side, which is the butterfly part of the dress, is still opened. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to hem the bottom part of the dress. Now while cutting out your fabric, make sure you add seam allowance for hemming the bottom part of your dress. You add that to the full length of your dress. So now I'm going to go over and hem my dress. Now after hemming the dress, the next thing I'm going to do right now is to finish off the butterfly part of the dress by hemming it. Remember, while cutting out, I added seam allowance for this. I added 2 inches seam allowance for this. So depending on the amount of seam allowance you added, you can go ahead and hem yours. You can equally use trimmer for this or add trimmer to it after hemming it, but this is how I'm going to leave it for now. So now after doing this, the next thing we are going to do is to turn your fabric to the right side of your dress. Now I'm going to show you how to continue the sewing on this paper, because if I do it on fabric, it could be cumbersome and not easily understandable. Now as you can see, we've sewn one side of the side seam, which is the part that will have sleeve, and to sew the other side seam, we are going to do it at the right side of the fabric. So now you're going to start off with tracing where the armhole line is by placing your ruler at the armhole like this, and then you are going to mark it. The essence of this is that you're not going to see the markings you made at the wrong side of your dress right here at the right side. So you're going to measure down at least 2 inches below the armhole you made at the other side seam, because both sides are not the same. Now you trace the tiniest part, which is the waistline of your dress, and you're going to mark it right here. Make a tiny line. Then from here you're going to measure down 8 to 9 inches to find the hip line at this right side of your dress. Make sure you use a chalk that you can easily clean off, because right here is the right side of your fabric. So now the next thing you are going to do is to start marking in your measurements to sew the other side of the side seam. To do that, you're going to place your tape starting from the bust line area. You're going to divide your bust circumference into 2 plus 1 inch for ease. Then you mark. Then at the waistline area, your waist circumference divided into 2 plus 1 inch for ease, you mark. Then at the hip line area, you're going to place your tape like this. Divide your hip circumference into 2 plus 1 inch ease, you mark. Then for the bottom part of the dress, whatever you marked at the hip line, you're going to add extra 10 inches to that. Place your tape at the closed seam area and you mark. So right here, the next thing you're going to do is to mark out your side seam, and then you're going to sew that together. Also remember that you're going to be sewing this on the right side of your fabric. And once you are done doing that, your dress is almost ready. And also take note of this part of your dress. You blotton the sewing line so that it doesn't have a sharp cut to it. Now after sewing this, the next thing to do is to determine the kind of sleeve to add to your dress. For mine, I combined a basic sleeve with a flare cuff. So the length of the sleeve, basic sleeve, is 18.5 inches, while that of the flare is about 6 inches long. I have a basic sleeve tutorial already, and I'm going to put the link in the description box below. Now you're going to make sure that the cuff part of your sleeve matches well with the upper part of the flare part of your sleeve. Now to sew the sleeve, the first thing I'm going to do is to finish off the bottom part of the flare part of the sleeve with a bias, just as I did for the neckline area. Then I'm going to sew my side seam of the sleeve. Now after doing that, this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do now is to join this flare part to the cuff part of my sleeve. Then I'm going to go ahead and sew this sleeve onto my dress, and my dress is ready. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and if you're yet to subscribe, click the subscribe button below and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our interesting tutorials. And if you have questions to ask, please don't hesitate to leave your questions on the comment section below. See you guys in my next video. Bye.